Hey, friends, it's Amanda, solo in Seattle. Welcome back to my podcast. We are in season 2, episode 5, and today I'm going to be visiting with my best friend. Her name is Kirsten. We'll intro her in just a second, but today's episode is about friendship loss. Losing a friend can hit just as hard, if not harder, than a breakup. In this episode of Solo in Seattle, we're diving deep into friendship loss, the unexpected endings, the slow fades, and betrayals that left us questioning everything. How do you heal when a friendship ends? Can friendships be rekindled? Or are some doors better left closed? Let's talk about it. Welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, girl. Hey, how are you?
Hey, doing good.
So, Kirsten and I have been friends for
8 years.
8 years. So we met 8 years ago when we were baby therapists.
Yes, we were. Before we knew anything about anything.
Before we were able to figure out how to help other people, we had to
Mhm.
help ourselves and go
Yeah.
through graduate school and get those degrees teased out. So today's topic: friendship loss.
Yes,
Have you had a friend that you lost?
I have. I have. I would say it's one of the bigger traumas in my life.
Yeah.
A friend.
Trauma is so real, especially with friends. It's almost one of those things where it's almost as serious as losing a relationship, like an intimate partnership,
Yes, if not worse.
if not worse. And it's one of those things where you never think that friendships are actually going to end because sometimes they're like hot and heavy
Yeah.
in the beginning and you're inseparable. And everything is perfect until it's not.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
And then how do you cope, right?
How do you cope?
Mhm.
So that moves me into the first question. Have you ever lost a close friend and what happened?
Yeah, I have. I have unfortunately lost a close friend. This was I would say, my first childhood best friend, the first person I ever knew. This is a person who grew up across the street from me, and she knew me since I was in my mom's belly.
Wow.
And we were friends ourselves, but our families were also friends. So I think that also made it more complicated, when the breakup happened, because you're not just breaking up with your friend, you broke up with the whole family.
Wow, that's deep.
That's so hard.
So, how does that work, right? So, was she older than you?
She was.
Okay.
So she was 5 years older than me. Her uncle and my big brother were good friends. And so they started off this sort of like neighborhood workout. And so that's how we got friendly. Our families got friendly is through them. And then, when I came along, it was such a natural fit for kind of being close enough to her age. We were both sort of the girls in the neighborhood that were around the same age and played
Yeah.
together. And, her mom was basically my mom and vice versa.
And so, when you and her became fast friends,
Mhm.
how long was that friendship?
My goodness, that friendship lasted from in utero until about 36 years old.
No.
Yeah.
So, this is a recent loss.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so, did you see the friendship loss coming?
Never. Never. We called each other soulmates. We called each other like best friends, but it was so much deeper than that because I am the youngest child of three with a big age gap between my siblings, and she was an only child. So the both of us were almost like sisters.
Yeah.
And we called each other sisters for 36 years.
So, it's very unexpected.
Unexpected.
And how did the loss of the friendship impact you emotionally?
Yeah, the loss was heartbreaking. I alluded to even worse, right, than relationship breakups, because relationship breakups, you're prepared for the most part, right? Society prepares you, your friends, your family might prepare you, stories might prepare you, love songs will definitely prepare you.
Yeah, the love songs are the worst.
But who talks about losing your best friend?
Yeah.
And this is somebody that I thought was a lifer,
Hmm.
right? And that was devastating to find out that I was wrong.
Yeah.
So I think, in hindsight, I see a lot of red flags. And so it's hard to talk about it in hindsight because it's so obvious now. But at the time, right, because this was somebody who was so ingrained into my like ecological system, I would even say like consent wasn't even a thing between us as friends. It was just assumed. Our
Yeah.
families assumed, right? So the friendship was always assumed. And throughout the years, because she was older than me, I looked to her like a big sister. I looked to her as a mentor. She was the first person who like taught me to bake chocolate chip cookies and do my eyeliner. And
Which is on,
thank
yeah,
you. And put fake lashes on, and
which again is on
thank
point.
you. And taught me what face scrub was and
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? So
Skin is on point. Yeah.
and so this is somebody who taught me a lot and was so much more than just like a girlfriend to me.
Yeah.
And I think vice versa as well, especially in our older years where I was able to be sort of a therapist to her in unofficial ways, of course.
But girl,
Yeah,
it's exhausting
it's exhausting.
because, like, in our profession, we're on
Hmm.
all day, and then we have to be on all the time for certain friends.
Yeah.
All friends command your advice or your sounding system or sounding board, but it always is that red flag friend that just
Yeah.
is the energy suck.
And now I know that. But at the time, I was so honored to be the friend that she would go to,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's like the equivalent, like we were talking about, over dinner tonight,
Mhm.
was love bombing
Yeah,
and friendships. It's a real thing.
it is.
You know,
It is.
we see all of these red flags. So, what signs would you now recognize in friendships as a red flag?
So now, like you said, love bombing, right? That's a really big sign. I think intentionality is a really big sign. Reciprocity is a big one now that I've realized what happened. Because in this friendship, it was very one sided.
I was about to say, girl, it's
It
one
was.
sided.
It was. And when I was younger, because I was younger, I very much relied on her. And at that time, the scale was tilted in her favor. Right. But as we grew older, we sort of equalized in our, let's call it, power dynamic. And she would come to me for, her troubles. I would go to her for mine. And it was pretty even for a good decade or two until it wasn't.
It's always until it wasn't,
Mhm.
right? And so, what is that catapulting event that makes you see clearer?
For me, it took many years of reflection before it got clear because I could not understand what happened for about, I want to say a good 2, 3 years. I couldn't understand what happened. I knew I was hurt. I knew that she didn't feel safe anymore, but I didn't know why.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put words to it. Like I can now.
For me, I will peep a situation and I will let you think that we're cool and that what you're doing doesn't bother me and let your ass hang yourself. What kind of friend are you?
Well, I mean, I think I've evolved over time.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I used to be ride or die, and I expected ride or die.
Girl, we too old to ride or die.
And then I realized that now.
Bitch, you about to die by
I
yourself.
know, right? We all do. So I think that was unrealistic of me.
Unrealistic, sis.
But when we're young, that's forgivable. You don't know any better.
Sure.
Right? And that, is how a friendship is talked about in the movies and in the books and the songs and all that, right? People talk about, we are friends forever. I am your ride or die. We're proud about that.
Yeah.
So how am I supposed to know that that's toxic, actually?
Right. And so, did you always kind of overlook some of her
I
actions?
did. I did. A lot of time, I want to say I gaslit myself
Mm,
because I would have, right? I would have gut feeling
right.
about something. I would have strong intuition.
What is your interpretation
Yeah.
of gaslighting?
I would say gaslighting is when you perceive something to be true, there's enough evidence that it's true, and yet you either allow yourself or somebody else to convince you that it's not true against your better judgment.
Okay. Because I always like to ask people's perception of what they believe gaslighting is,
Mhm.
because there's so many misinterpretations of gaslighting. Because a lot of people tend to use trigger words like
Sure.
that in defense, but they're typically the one who's doing the
Yeah.
gaslighting, and they're trying to placate and they're trying to turn things around and
Yes.
make
It's
you
like,
feel like you're the crazy one, and then you actually get it in your head and you're like, well, maybe. And I'm guilty of this all the time because I'm like, I can't remember what's true or not, because so many scenarios have happened. I don't really remember what happened in sequence because this person has convinced me that no, this is the way that things happen
and your memories are false.
and your memories are
Yeah.
false. And so that's a prime example
Mhm.
of being gaslit,
Exactly.
where it's hard for you to discern what the true memory is.
Yes.
And that's why I'm going to break it down for people in this podcast. And it got a little deep right there with that meaning, but like a lot of people overuse that word and they can't connect how it makes sense.
Mhm.
And so, did you try to salvage the friendship at all?
I did it for a year because I was too hurt. And then I went to therapy. I did a lot of self work, a lot of reflection, a lot of radical compassion. And then I decided to kind of extend that olive branch, right? My grandmother had died. And so because this girl was in my life for so long, I assumed that would mean something to her when my grandmother died, even though we were kind of still having beef at the time. But I assumed that when I told her that she would show up as a friend. Because we all had always made promises like that, like no matter what, or what, I'm mad at you, if I'm far away from you, I would always show up for you, right? And when I told her that, I was expecting her to give me condolences. I was expecting her to drop the cold facade between us and kind of show up for me.
Hmm.
And she didn't. She told me, I'll inform my mother.
Oh boy.
And that was it. Yeah.
So it's safe to say beyond repair.
Deep. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And what is the difference between fading friendships and a fake friend?
Okay. So I think with fading friendships, there probably was some type of real basis to begin with, right? We felt safe, we felt, mutually able to trust each other and share our lives with each other. And then maybe some kind of catalyst happens. Sometimes that looks like marriage, sometimes that's having a kid, sometimes that's moving, changing jobs, whatever, right? And that can be the catalyst to break a friendship or fade out a friendship.
And that's normal. That's human. And usually that person, once they stabilize, they cycle back.
That's true. And if they don't, there's no hard feelings.
There
Typically,
shouldn't
right?
be, right? There
Yeah.
shouldn't be hard feelings.
Yeah, unless it's some kind of traumatic event
Right.
happened. Unless something like that happened, typically we fade, we may come back or not. It's no big deal. We
Yeah.
call each other fondly,
Yeah.
right? But when it's a fake friendship, I think that's where a lot of the self questions you ruminate. Was this real?
Oh, we were talking about me ruminating. That is my favorite thing to do.
Huh?
If somebody asks me, girl, what do you like to do on ruminate?
Ruminate. They better pay you to do that.
So ruminating is basically like talking about the same thing over and
Yeah.
over again and
Overthinking, right?
overthinking it
Yeah.
and not being able to get past. For those listening that may not be technical, like Kirsten and I over here, like doing our therapy
Yeah.
play with words.
Our shop talk.
Our shop talk. We'll get all clinical and then we'll circle back. But anyways, not to
Yeah.
hijack that, but I'm like, that girl, that is my favorite thing to do. You can find me somewhere ruminating.
Right? So typically I think, in my experiences, that's an indicator. Because why would you need to question if this friendship was real if it was real? Because in your heart, you would have known.
And fake friends too, they show up and they have way too much energy.
Yeah.
Time sucking. They're always around. They always want to do something. They always want to hang out. But then when you want to hang out,
Where'd they go?
where'd they go?
Yeah.
But when they have the time, they seek you out because they prey on you. That's a fake friend.
That's a fake friend.
It's somehow they always know your life, your schedule, your availability. But when it's their turn and you want to step out or you want to do something,
Nowhere to be found.
nowhere to be found. Have you ever had a friend who only came around when they needed something?
In hindsight, it's this girl.
Yeah.
It's this friend. Right. In the moment, I think I was at the time when I was younger, I was in that scarcity mindset with friends. It was hard to make friends. I felt like I was not very popular. She seemed very, very popular and so much cooler. And so I think that drew me to her. There was a charisma there, right?
Yeah.
And a magnetic energy there that was spellbinding, and over time, you kind of see how the magic works. And
Yep.
it's not working.
It wears off,
It
right?
wears off.
That
Yeah.
shiny wears off.
Yeah.
And that's a mask,
Yeah.
right?
Is.
That's a mask and masks can happen in so many different ways, so many different people, so many different relationships, not just friendships, not just personal intimate relationships. But that friend that only comes around when they need something and then you're at your worst
Yeah.
or you are just out of character.
Yeah.
And they don't even notice.
I know. And it's so funny because it's not funny, it's ironic because in this situation, this friend let me down. The first time she broke my heart was on my wedding day. Because this is a person that I had cherished so deeply in my life that I prioritized her presence on my wedding day as well. And she completely dropped the ball in so many ways. And it's interesting to me in hindsight that on what was supposed to be my happiest day, she couldn't allow that and instead, added to the heart, like it's the heartbreak, the trauma of that event instead of celebrating. me, my partner, our friendship, and the longevity of this friendship, instead of allowing that to be a happy day. I think perhaps it threatened her.
It wasn't about her.
It wasn't about her. And that's the thing I realized is our friendship was always about her.
Fake friends, it's always about that
Yeah.
friend. It's always about how they can benefit, how they can suck your energy, how they can deplete you.
Yeah.
They're vampires.
Mhm.
How do you handle friends who gossip about you behind your back? 'Cause I'm pretty sure that happened.
I'm sure. I'm sure. At this stage in life, I hope I've cut all of those friends out. And if I haven't, then I think that their desire to gossip behind my back is more of a reflection on them than it is on me. But at the time when I was friends with this person and, in the younger times of my life, I think I too was susceptible to such things, right? I would also gossip behind people's backs. They would probably gossip behind mine. But now looking back at it with a little bit of wisdom in me, I realize that that is a mask for insecurity.
Yeah.
Because if you're good with you, why do you
Mhm.
have to talk about somebody else?
And let's just be clear, right? There is a difference between gossiping and clarifying facts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because, people can know a circle of people and have a conversation about that circle of mutual people and fact check. But whenever you just maliciously bring this person up negatively and it just continues to carry negatively, that's the difference.
Yes. And what's the purpose?
Yeah.
To fill boredom?
That or to try to sway
Yeah.
somebody to like you over that person,
True.
which is immature.
It is. It is. And it's manipulative.
It's and that's what happens in fake friends.
Yes.
Is they intend to control, they intend to manipulate, and they possess.
They do. They do.
And that's one thing that I said recently to one of my friends was like, I don't own you. You are free to go wherever, do
Yeah.
wherever, hang
Live your
out with
life.
whomever,
Mhm.
live your life. Like there's no ownership over whoever I introduce you to.
Right.
I don't ever want to be that friend. Like loyalty is everything,
Mhm.
obviously, and there's a difference between ownership and loyalty,
There is. It's about
because
power.
it is. And like for me, I'm go with the flow. I just like to hang out. I like to have fun. I like to hang out with controlled fun.
Mhm.
Like I will go.
Mhm.
I'm not asking who's gonna be there, and I'll still go, but like I ain't fucking with her.
Yeah.
You go over there with her.
Yeah.
I would be by myself solo dolo, which is fine. And my friends can tell you there's the group and then there's Amanda.
Right.
And I'm completely fine with that. I'm not having a bad time.
No.
It's we all came to the same place to have a good ass time with who you're used to having a good ass time with. I am just fine
Yeah.
sitting here, probably judging. That leads me into how do you tell if someone is genuinely happy for you or secretly envious?
That's tricky, right? Because I think depending on how good an actor that person is, they can be pretty convincing. And so I think, you probably will have to do some deep diving into what intentionality looks like between the two of you. You probably want to look at patterns, within the friendship. You want to look at reciprocity and respect, right? Are they showing up for you
Yeah.
when you need them?
You and I can talk about that in our friendship.
Mhm.
We have been friends for 8 solid years.
Mhm.
We have yet to get into an argument, disagreement, say something offensive to one another. It has not happened.
No.
And we've hung out a lot.
Yeah.
That's the thing is every time we are together, we're genuinely happy for each other.
Exactly.
And I mean, we go from top to bottom.
We've seen each other top to bottom
We've
in
seen each other
different phases.
in different phases of life. And over the past 8 years, we just continue to grow
Mhm.
and glow up.
Yes, that's right.
And so talking about glow ups,
Yeah. Glow ups, these experiences in life have inspired me and they've empowered me to launch my own private practice. So
that's
as
right.
a profession, I'm a licensed psychotherapist and I've been working at a group practice for about half a decade now. And I felt ready to stretch my wings, a little bit earlier on, but I'm finally getting the idea as to how I want to stretch my wings.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's something that I'm about to launch, which is a glow up series where, I help people to re-empower themselves after breakups, whether that's relationship breakups, friendship breakups, family breakups, and essentially find themselves.
That's right. Yeah. I just wanted to throw her out there,
Thank
make her uncomfortable for a second,
you.
because I'm genuinely happy for you.
Thank you.
What is it?
Therapy.com.
And we will drop that. Oh, do you have an Instagram for it, right?
Not yet.
Not
I
yet?
will.
That's okay.
Watch this space.
Yeah, we will drop it. That's the thing, right? Is that you're a guest on Solo in Seattle's podcast. I will always empower my friends.
Thank you.
And I will always push you out of your comfort zone.
Yes. And that's a friend.
That's a friend.
Yeah.
And this was off script. I mean, and it just organically led right into your glow up series, which was, during dinner tonight. You were like, "Hey, I want to, talk to you about something that I'm thinking of." And it started as one way, and then we kind of started
That's
teasing
right.
out ideas and started talking about, glow up therapy, glow up sessions, what that looks like,
Right.
and that is really just being able to connect you with somebody who
Yeah.
is going through different phases and somebody who is looking for a professional soundboard, paid therapist, psychotherapist, Kirsten here, that is licensed in the state of Washington to provide advice
Yeah.
at different phases of anything that you're going through, whether it is a friendship, whether it is an intimate partnership, divorce, any of those things. The glow up is real.
It is.
And we talk about that being able to navigate life. Because y'all, she has listened to me for the past 2 years, unpaid, glowing up. So it's one of those things about being friends, having growth, and moving on. And Kirsten and I have been friends from the beginning of relationship from season 1 that I talk about until the end of relationship 1 in season 1 that I talk about. So she has actually seen the start, the middle, and the end, and has had a front row seat of just the roller coaster of love, happiness, unhappiness,
Happiness
life, happiness again, sex, lack of sex for me, right? Which I talk about in my season 1. I'm super open about that. But these are all things that Kirsten can help anybody who is going through that, being able to kind of navigate professionally in a way, because not all of us have someone to talk to.
True.
That's a therapist.
That's a good point.
I am very, very lucky to have a circle of therapist buddies, my colleagues, that I'm like, call you at like late at night, like, girl, oh my God, guess what happened? And she always answers, so sweet, so available. All right. So talking about growing and moving on, do you believe people outgrow friendships?
I think it can happen.
Or do you think real friendships last forever?
That's hard to say, right? Because I think, friendships will evolve as people evolve. And if two people are evolving, relatively at the same rate, I think there's a good chance that you probably could stay pretty friendly. But if there's a stagnation in one of the, person's glow up, then it's a lot harder. It's not impossible, but it's a lot harder.
Because, girl, you already know my motto. My problems are your problems.
I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help.
Listen, my problems are actually the internet's problems.
Yeah, that's
Because I created a whole podcast about my problems, and y'all will listen to them.
But they're relatable, because these are not just problems that you've experienced, but these are a humanity type of situation, right? Most of us have experienced heartache in one form or another, feelings of abandonment or having to abandon in one form or another.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing to do, though. Loki is like abandoned. Where I will leave you in a hot second. That is kind of like, that is my specialty. Is like, oh, you think we're good? Okay, no problem. I'll just move 2,200 miles away. And so, like, I've had layers of friends.
Yes.
My longest friendship probably is probably 2 people. Trika, who lives out here in the Seattle area. We've been friends for 30 plus years. And then Monica. Monica is also one of my friends from 3rd grade. We used to ride the school bus together. I do think that real friendships last forever. I think a way for friendships to last forever and to sustain is by giving you space and time.
That's fair.
Because if you are a friend, you're a friend no matter what. If you are a friend, you can go days, weeks, months, years and not talk, and that should be okay. We need to get rid of this misconception that if you're best friends, you have to talk daily.
That's true. Yeah.
You don't. Like, we ain't together.
No.
You ain't paying my bills. Like, I don't have to check in with
We
you.
have jobs. We're
We have
busy.
life, right? And I think that's the biggest misconception with friendships is that you have some sort of obligation to respond. That's not true. I mean, I'm sure if Trika could live right next to me, she's my best friend. But I mean, time and space.
Yeah.
I moved out here because she lived out here. She gave me the power, and she gave me the confidence to move 2,200 miles away from everything and everyone that I knew.
Right.
For years, she told me, she said, "You will make the most money if you come out here.
Hmm.
You will thrive if you come out here." No, no, no. Like I've got Donovan, I've got responsibility. It was fear. And then one day this man pissed me off.
And that fear is so so scary.
And I was like, okay, watch this.
Yeah.
And I sold all my stuff, which I share in season one, and I put it in 2 suitcases, and I moved 2,200 miles away from everyone and everything that I knew.
Mhm.
And I restarted my life. And she was right,
Yeah.
because I am now making 10 times what I made
Yeah.
when I lived in Austin, and I'm thriving. I have some of the most healthiest relationships that I've ever had. So I personally believe that friendships do last forever with time and space.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's unrealistic expectations that happen when you smother. If you can't give somebody space and time in any relationship, it's not going to sustain.
No, no, you take the air out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it becomes an obligation. And then here comes the resentment.
Right. So that's the thing. It's when it feels like an obligation, right? I think that's when it's difficult to maintain a friendship when there's some type of like unrealistic expectation there.
Yeah.
But, with Trika, I think there was not that type of expectation. It was only support
Yeah.
and some advice, where she saw you objectively and she knew that you had so much potential for it.
Right.
And so she encouraged you to come.
Right.
Right. So I think I have to be grateful to her for bringing you, to this side
Trust
of the
me,
country.
trust me, she will appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
And I always appreciate her. And no matter what she does, what she says, how things happen, we always work through it,
Yeah.
because of time and space. And so how do you cope with friendship breakups compared to romantic
Yeah.
breakups?
With friendship breakups, I think, you have to do the work, right? You have to do the work to introspect, not just about what happened and where it all went wrong, but to see if you were being your true self during that friendship.
Right.
Is this a friendship, and this could apply to relationships, romantic relationships too, what was your identity in that space? Were you able to be yourself? Were you allowed? Or, did you feel pressured? Were there expectations for you to be different? You know?
That's so true, because let's talk about breakup,
Yeah,
the heartbreak.
yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to think, have I experienced that? Because I'm so cold-blooded. That's evil laugh. Thinking, I'm like, let me think about one of these little dumb bitches that I didn't cut off. Yeah, I haven't broke my heart. Let me think. I'm like, let me go in the Rolodex.
Maybe it's been a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, honestly, yeah. Oh, I remember. I just remembered. So I used to work for the police department for years. And this person worked there as well. We were so close. We have matching tattoos.
Wow. That's close.
We have matching tattoos.
Yeah.
And she did some slick shit. And recently, I saw her funky ass looking at my socials.
Wow.
She viewed my profile or whatever on TikTok. So me with my little messy self, I said, I don't know what algorithm led you to me, but it needs to take you back. I sure did. I dropped that on her. I said, I don't know what algorithm brought you to me, but it needs to take you back. And listen, I don't know what GPS sent you. Reroute. No, yeah, like oh my gosh, I forgot about that girl until like I really had to like dig in my brain and think about this person. But I've seen her popping up randomly, like a suggested friend,
Mm-hmm.
which means she's lurking, I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And then, floating on socials. And all my stuff is public. So if you want to be a looky loo, go for it. I really don't care. But anywho, she's a lost cause, doesn't even really matter. But have you ever reconnected with a lost friend? And what was that like?
Hmm. I think you might be the friend that I reconnected with after a while because we did meet 8 years ago, but the pandemic hit
Right.
very shortly after. And so for those few years, I think we were both inside.
Yeah.
rightly so. And we lost touch with each other, but I think we reconnected very intentionally.
Yeah.
It helped that we share a similar hobby. We love our Yelp influencing.
So that was another really cool thing
Yeah.
was that we found out towards the end of my
Yes.
internship, I believe.
Yeah.
We figured out we were both
We
Yelp
did.
elites.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we started to kind of get to know each other because we
That's
were like, oh
right.
my goodness, similarities
That's
here.
right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Whenever you were already graduated
Yes.
and you were working at the practice,
Yes.
and I was going through my internship when we met.
Yep.
And I always remembered that you were busy, doing your day-to-day job, but I would always come by your
You
office.
did.
Every single time that I was doing my internship, something drew me to her and I was like, "Hey, how's your day? Like, how's it
You
going?
would say good morning.
Yeah, like I mean, it was always very cordial and I would always make a point
Mm-hmm.
to say hello to you. And that wasn't always the case with other staff therapists.
True. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know what it was. I want to be your friend,
Mhm.
and I don't know if we moved into friendship at that point because we were colleagues
Right.
more so. I believe towards my graduation
Mhm.
from interning there at the practice, we figured out we were Yelp
We
elites.
did.
And then that became our mutual interest of, oh, are you going to go to this? And then the pandemic happened. Yeah, because gosh, I feel like I graduated in 18. When did you graduate? 17?
I graduated in 2015. Mhm.
So you got some miles on
I
me.
did, but
Wait, when did
I
I
did
graduate then?
it because I had to pause working for a couple years. I was going through the immigration process.
Yeah.
Right. So I was working pretty much at the same rate that you were working. So we met professionally about the same level.
Yeah. Okay. I knew that personally, right? And that's up to you to share. But yeah, I remember, gosh, it's been so it's been so long. I'm like, when did I graduate? I honestly cannot even I think it was 2018. It had it
Yeah,
tomato
that makes
tomato.
sense because that's when we were working there. Was that?
Yeah, okay. So then that's when I graduated.
Mhm.
We'll just call it.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know where the degree is. I'm like, I don't even know where that degree is at. So we reconnected. I graduated 2018. When was COVID? Was it 19 or 20?
20.
Okay. So yeah, so I went through the therapy rounds, did the thing, got the clinical hours, graduated, and then I think I went back to work where I currently work at. And then we started doing some Yelp stuff,
Yes.
and then COVID hit,
Hmm.
and then the world shut
And then the
down.
world shut down.
And then COVID, gosh, I feel like COVID lasted what, 3 years?
Pretty much.
Yeah, and then we were
Yeah.
always like
We
friends,
kept in touch
yeah,
on social.
and socials and all that, yeah, and text back and forth, and we share the same dark humor
Mhm.
and the love of cats,
Yeah.
cat humor. All right, and so what was it like for you to reconnect with me? As yeah,
So,
good,
I had missed you. I didn't know you as well as I know you now, but I always liked you,
yeah,
and it
thank
was
you.
so cool, to reconnect with you, especially over Yelp because you were still doing it and so was I. And I
Mhm.
don't know a lot of people in the community, in the Yelp community. So it was nice to have somebody that I could reliably, go to and
Right.
talk about these things with.
Yeah, and the same for me. So I always knew I liked you as
Yeah.
well. Like because I always sought you out.
Yeah.
Like every day that I came to work at the therapy practice, I always made sure to pass by your office to see if you were there, to say hi, to greet you before I even greeted my
Yeah.
clients. And then COVID happened and it really did cause like a strain on a lot of relationships and in so many different ways, even on my personal
Mhm.
relationship. And so I think when we reunited in 2020 who cares about our family? Whenever we,
In the recent
yeah, in the recent past, I'm like, I don't even, these years have just blurred by. When we were able to start reintegrating into society
Yep.
after it was safe to do
Yeah.
so, then I started realizing, peeling back layers. And you and I would have our Friday.
Yeah.
We established a meeting on Fridays at least once a month,
Yeah.
sometimes twice a month, I think.
Sometimes.
And then Yelp events if you were available. And we would just catch up, be sounding boards for each other. And it was always equal sharing.
It was.
There was never just an exhausting dump. And I think that's how our friendship has been able to sustain is because we both are able to share space.
Yes, we are. And there's no expectation for each other to be anything more than ourselves.
That's right. So, moving back into the topic of the loss of friendships,
Mhm.
how do you set boundaries to protect yourself from toxic friendships?
Well, I think boundaries, are a flexible thing. right? They should be dynamic. They should not be too rigid because if you have the same type of boundaries for every single person on earth, then how will you navigate, your inner circle, the various concentric circles of, people who mean something to you,
Right.
right? So I think that's a tough question, but I think, it's about knowing yourself first, right? Because when you know yourself and you have a strong hold on what your values are and your identity is, it's really hard for other people to convince you to be something that you're not
Mm-hmm.
because you will immediately feel the ick.
Yeah. Ugh, the ick is so strong for
Yeah.
me, girl. I'll be like, mm-mm.
Yeah.
If you don't take your ass on away from me.
No. That will raise your blood pressure. That will give you cholesterol
Girl, they ain't
issues.
raising my blood pressure because I will
No.
dismiss you so
No.
quick.
No.
Mm-mm.
Somebody's
Like
not about to give me some wrinkles.
toxic friendship. Oh, Botox, but it's fine. But toxic friendships. I mean, that's an onion layer because I don't think you always realize that it's toxic.
That's exactly it.
I don't always think that you realize that you have to set a boundary until trauma sets in.
Right. And that's when most people will start to set boundaries,
Hmm.
right? After you get hurt, which is fair because how are you supposed to know,
That they were toxic.
that they were toxic
Right.
or that you needed boundaries like that, right? So that's why I say boundaries should be dynamic because we can't be hard on ourselves because we didn't see somebody's toxic plans coming.
What lessons have you learned from losing a friend?
I learned to love myself.
Hmm.
I learned that it was my mistake to put so much, I want to say weight on her, for
Hmm.
her validation of me and my work, which I absolutely relied on her for. And that was my bad. I should have never done that. But when you grow up in a situation where, that was the dynamic and, it's normal, then I think you don't know better.
Right.
Right. So it took me really looking at myself, making new friends like you, making new friends like in grad school, to realize that I could just be myself and people would like that. I didn't have to be fake.
That's
Yeah.
so good because I mean, self-discovery is probably the best journey anyone could
Yeah.
go on. And even after learning variance,
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like I self-reflect and I'm hard on myself. I am hard on myself. I will literally dissect what I did wrong before I dissect what someone else did wrong.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, I feel like I caused the problem.
I agree.
Surely I had to have done something
Mhm.
for this cause and effect. But then you have to realize that's trauma speaking.
Exactly.
That is somebody who has hurt you and made you feel like you are the problem.
Right. And you got to realize that more than likely that's done on purpose to absolve them and to blame you.
Yeah. Do you think that losing a friend makes you more guarded in
More
future
guarded.
friendships?
No, I'm really grateful that it hasn't. And I think that's a point of my own stubbornness that I refuse to be the kind of person that, becomes selfish with my person, with my personality, with my, what I have to give to other people.
Mhm.
Because what a shame that would be, right? To diminish myself because somebody hurt me once.
So think about me in the context of our friendship,
Mm.
because a few of my friends, my old heads that have known me and watched me evolve. So when you first knew me and met me, I was in that long-term
You were.
relationship
Hmm.
and I didn't have friends outside of you
Right.
or my colleagues. I just had my work friends.
Yeah.
I didn't have a social life. I didn't have social friends. And then life happens. I moved through the breakup and then I start having friendships outside of my
You
workplace.
did.
And what is kind of cool for me and for you all to help me see is I was miss no new friends. I did not accept new friendships. I did not want to meet anybody. I didn't want anybody in my circle. I was just fine with those people that I'd worked with and had those friendships that I built.
Mhm.
And so one of my really other good friends, her name is Everlyn. She's like my sister.
Mhm.
And she always takes the time to remind me how proud of me that she is,
Mhm.
that I have found new friends.
Yeah.
And I have found some really good new friends. Last summer, I probably built some of the best friendships that I've built that have sustained.
Yes.
I have a friend, Dawn,
Mhm.
that I'm always with. I mean, I love her very, very much. Dawn is the dynamic friend
Mhm.
that is the good time girl. We can go, we can kick it, or we can just do a picnic in the park. We can hang out. It doesn't matter. She's really the best of both worlds,
Mhm.
and she's a solid friend.
Yeah.
And then I have my other buddy, Betty, and she's on episode 3 of the podcast. I met her in downtown. I think I met her either with Trika or with Dawn. I don't remember. We had a run last summer. I don't, it doesn't matter, right? I was able to bring that friendship outside of that connection of, hanging around someone's business. And there's all of these people that I have collected over the last summer that have not moved forward. What's crazy is you've had the opportunity to meet my buddy Dawn and joking about it when, you were able to meet her. And I was like, you've never met any of my outside friends. You had the opportunity. You noticed her immediately.
I did. You do.
And so that's what I'm saying is that not everything has to be guarded. Am I? I think I am guarded to a certain point because I'm protective of my energy. I feel like whatever you give me, I give back. If I feel like you're safe and you come with true intentions and you have good bones, I'm gonna rock with you. But I immediately, if I and I haven't seen some frogs in the last year.
You have.
And them frogs can leap their happy ass
Yeah.
on. How do you find new meaningful friendships after a loss?
Well, I think, we gotta lick our wounds first, right? You gotta take care of yourself first. And then when you're ready, then you start to intentionally put yourself out there. So for you, you would intentionally go to more events. Because I remember, that was part of the journey was on Yelp. And you would go to more events, you would be more open to meeting new people, talking to new people, because you have a good memory, you remember people.
That's right.
Right. And so then people feel good when you remember them. And that allows you to establish some kind of relationship there. And then later it's on you to build that or not.
Absolutely.
Right. But I think that's a good way that a person could make new friends after
Mhm.
a difficult breakup is to just put themselves out there again.
Very true. And I kind of did like what I like to call a social experiment. So if you remember when I started my first business, I used to host those community events.
Hmm.
And then that kind of went kind of viral. And then I kind of gained a following from that. And I was an influencer before influencing was influencing. And I didn't even realize what that was. I built a mega brand. It was cool. I didn't realize the influence that I had. And then the rise and the fall, because then I was like, oh, I don't really like the attention.
Sure.
I need my privacy back. So I stepped out and then I went back in. I stepped back out again because I wanted to start public speaking and I wanted to start doing all type of things. So that's how I put myself out there was to see, okay, well, I know that I'm successful in this business venture. Let me test it out and see if I can make friends.
Yeah.
And I have friends with all of my reselling buddies to this day. And it's amazing. I've made some really good connections. And then when I moved into the event space and now into the social media space and now into the influencing bubble, I've met all of these pockets and had all of these organic friendships by just showing up and putting myself out there. I'm not looking to go viral. I'm not looking to do any of those things. I'm just looking to be able to make connections.
But what you've done is figured out the key to defrosting the Seattle freeze.
Absolutely.
And that's something people talk about being impenetrable. And the fact that you didn't grow up here, that you were able to do that, and I think gracefully and seamlessly, I think that's a credit to yourself and also this technique.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that I'm onto something with this like social experiment because it doesn't matter who I'm with or where I'm with. Whenever I am in the room, there's a good energy about it. And it's always a good time. It does not matter who I'm with or what or where we're at. We could be at dinner, high end or low end. It doesn't matter. We could be at the gas station getting slushies for our alcohol. It doesn't matter. It's always just this positive energy of let's see where this goes. Or I could read the room and be like, "Nah, girl, you can go in there. I am not going in there." Like, but you just have to be able to discern kind of what that looks like. I do think that there can be, meaningful friendships after a loss as well.
Absolutely.
You just have to trust yourself.
Mhm.
Once you're secure in yourself, I think you can be secure in friendships and secure in other relationships. What role does social media play in friendship loss?
It provides an interesting window because unless you block folks or you lock down your account, social media is open to the world to look at. If that person was interested on looking at your content, they absolutely could. Right. So I think that it's tricky because that sort of creates like a parasocial relationship almost, especially if you don't talk to each other
Yeah.
anymore, because they kind of feel like they know you, but they don't really know you like that.
And so that's true, right? Because you'll hear about, oh, are you still friends with so and so? No, but they watch my
They watch
stories.
my stories. Yes.
They don't like your content, but they watch your stories. Liminals.
Yeah.
Bitch, why are you posting that?
Right. Right.
Is that meme about me?
Right.
It's not. It could be. Actually, I don't have those problems, so I don't look at my ex-friends' stories. I could care less. I see them on socials or whatever, but I don't care enough to maintain
Yeah.
relationships with them. But they look, I see. You can see who looks at
You
your stuff.
can. You can.
And it's just kind of like, what is the point? Where's the olive branch?
Right.
Are you looking at the story because you're just following the stories in sequence, or are you really just looking to see what I'm doing?
It was a great place to refill your haterade, what it is.
The girl, Ambrosia, she did my tarot, and no, she did my birth chart, my birth reading the first day she met me. And then we did a podcast recording on it. And she was like, be careful with your haters. I was like, girl, what?
Okay.
I was like, I have haters? Because like I am in tune with myself, maybe a little self-absorbed. I don't know. Whereas I'm like, who are these people?
Right.
Because they're meaningless to me. They hold no weight in my space.
So,
But yeah, I'm like, well, who sent you?
right.
Because you will not be able to mess with my space. It doesn't matter if you're a hater or not. I hope every time you look at something that I do, it makes you sick, like physically ill.
Yeah. Think of haters as misguided fans. 'Cause-
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other day, didn't
Yeah.
we?
Because they're watching. They stay tuned.
Watching.
Thank you for staying tuned, giving those views.
Run those views up. Thank you.
Yes, but why are they staying tuned and not saying anything, not reaching out, right? That's
So
weird.
what's the point?
Yeah.
So what is the point of why are you looking?
So is that self-harm?
For them or for me?
For them.
I'm like
Right? Is it self-harm to kind of put yourself in that space and keep looking
the
at
FOMO.
the FOMO, as and having all these feelings toward that person?
Because I'm busy. I
Yeah.
am booked and I am busy.
Yeah.
And I stay going somewhere and doing something. It doesn't matter. So do you think can mutual friends make a friendship breakup harder?
Can mutual friends make a break?
So like having socials, right?
Mhm.
And then you're connected to this spider web of
Mhm.
people in your social circle.
Yeah.
Do you think that it can make it harder?
I think so. I think it can. It depends on, how close you are to those extended friendships. It depends on how good you are with yourself. And if you can stay confident and stay strong in your decision, because with this person that I was talking about, we do have mutual friends. And, I haven't unfriended them and they haven't unfriended me either. So, I don't think there's any reason to go petty on them. They didn't do
Yeah.
anything.
Oh, baby, I'm deleting you, your mom,
Your grandma?
your dog's page.
Yeah.
All of y'all are getting blocked.
She's gonna dox your cat.
I listen, I'm not about to look at you. So I always joke around because I have a friend that pissed me off. Pissed me off. And we put her ass on ice. I blocked her on every which way possible. And that little rascal snuck her way back in recently. And she truly is one of my good friends now. And honestly, I we were both in a really bad place, when she pissed me off. And she said something slick, and I was like, I got you. You will never say nothing slick to me again. So I blocked her on every source imaginable. So she went in on my business website.
Wow.
And she started adding stuff to purchase.
I mean,
That was the only way she could get in
if
contact
you want to
with
buy
me.
some stuff, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and so anyways, interestingly enough, she was able to reach out to me and we laughed about it.
Mhm.
The first thing she did was apologize.
Good.
So, hey, okay, it's a wash.
Mhm.
Because what happened between us at the time was serious and it was offensive,
Mhm.
but it's not a deal breaker.
Right.
And it's about effort and it's about integrity
It is.
with me.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you lack those things, I can't with
No.
you. So, what is your advice as we close this out for someone struggling with losing a close friend?
I would say, if you're losing a close friend, let yourself go through it. Respect yourself enough that you are allowed by yourself to cry, process, grieve. Grieving is a complex thing. It can take a long time, right? As both you and I know, it can take a long time. So I think respecting that process enough that you could fully heal. And then when you're ready, start to recreate your community again. because in the process of loss, you may have lost, more than one person, right? So to recreate, people who love you and support you. And in time, I think that you'll regain your power, your secure attachment style, right? If you know about that, you're going to be able to build more friendships because ultimately you fall in love with yourself again. And then you know what you're worth. And so when other people come into your life, you're able to market yourself appropriately instead of seeing yourself as, some throwaway person.
And safely.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, safety, right? Rebuilding your safety.
And security. All right. Well, that's a wrap on this episode, guys. So, friendship loss is real. And whether it's a slow drift or a sudden fallout, we all have stories to tell. If this episode resonated with you, let me know. Either DM me or drop me a comment. I want to hear from you. If you have a story to share or a topic you think we should cover, I'm always looking for guests to join the conversation. Got something to say? Let's talk. Hit me up if you want to be on a future episode. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, stay real and stay solo or not. Thank you, Kirsten.